What is up, guys? Thanks for tuning in for another episode of our Ground Level Theology podcast. I'm Pastor Dave. Y'all know me, and I'm joined with my co host, Pastor Michael Malcolm. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going really well, and I'm excited for tonight's episode. We have another fun another fun reaction video, uh, and you and I, we didn't like we have a love-hate relationship with the gym. You love it and I hate it. Uh, and like okay, now and we always like we used to joke around like I don't even care like if I look like I don't go to the gym as long as I can pick up a lot of weight.
Yeah. Well, the
And
big
just lift
irony
it.
there is we were gym bros for like a solid like maybe year, maybe 2 years
Yeah,
before
we were normal bros and then we became gym bros and
that.
now it's just we're normal bro. Now you're a gym bro and I'm just a normal bro again. Um, but during that time, I think we had I don't want to say a mutual disdain, but it just was so easy to make fun of people that did CrossFit. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
just naturally, and so I
It
think,
was really vogue at the time, you
yeah,
know.
it
It
was
was
huge.
it was like making fun of vegans. It was just like
It's just what you do.
it was really popular to do that at the time.
So I think what we should do, I think we should go back to our gym bro roots. Okay. And we should look at a brother in Christ, a youth pastor, and we both worked in youth ministry. And we can kind of react to this CrossFit youth pastor and kind of look at this really big object lesson that
Uh,
he has.
Alrighty. I'm gonna pull this up right here and we'll see. All right.
Works, they'll get closer to God. They go to church, they'll get closer to God. Do the right thing, they'll get closer to God. Don't lie, they get closer to God. And they look down like, hey, I'm getting closer to God. And then they keep trying all that good stuff. Say, what in the world's going on? I can't get any further. They realize that there's a barrier between us and God. That barrier is called what?
Sin.
I'm hanging here. What is it?
Sin.
Sin, right? We can't get any further. But the good news is, we don't have to. Because Jesus came down. And Jesus died for our sins. And He rose from the dead. And He offers a gift of forgiveness. And if you believe in Jesus, you have everlasting life. That's the way to God. Good works.
All right.
Good works.
Oh,
Oh,
that's,
he's doing it
that's,
again.
yeah, he's doing it again.
I don't think you guys got it. Like, yeah, the gospel.
All right. Well, okay. We kind of have to go about this a couple different ways.
I say we do it one,
Linear
at a
way.
time. I say we go up. I'm so sorry.
Well, first off, let's just describe the video real quick for those that are probably listening maybe on Spotify or some other platform that's not YouTube.
Right.
What we were watching was a youth pastor, and he had a legitimate like salmon ladder rack, like a squat
Yeah.
cage sort of. He had one set
Like
up.
14 feet tall, like at least
Yeah,
10 feet. Like, I mean,
at least
at
it's
least.
huge. I mean, I'm actually really impressed because that has to be so expensive just to own.
Yeah.
But he has one set up. He has the safeties and everything, and he has it
Mhm.
set up in what I can only assume is the youth gymnasium.
Like, yeah, like the auxiliary gym. This is
It's
like
I'm just
the
assuming that
multi-purpose room.
because yeah, clearly the ceilings are very high.
Mm,
So I don't know. Maybe this is the stage, and they have a stage that even you and I don't compare to.
no, no.
And
Yeah,
and this is an illustration for the youth.
right.
And so what he's doing is he has, and if you guys don't know what a salmon ladder is, um,
Watch
it's
Ninja Warrior.
essentially if you guys don't watch American Ninja Warrior or any of that stuff, you probably don't know what it is because that's where I learned this. But it's essentially a series of hooks that go above an elevation, and you're holding onto a bar that's situated in these hooks. So the way to get up is you have to essentially do an explosive pull up to hook onto the rungs above you with the bar that
Yeah.
you're holding onto.
Sounds horrible, right? Yeah.
But his illustration is essentially that you can climb the top of the ladder as much as you want on your own works, but you can never break the threshold because in his rack there's sort of a bar that won't let you essentially go to infinity.
hmm
And he says that that's sin. And then as he travels down, he says Jesus came down and died for your sin. So that's kind of that's a very visual illustration, right?
Like, is his theology wrong?
It's not.
Like,
And
no.
that's one thing I'll give him. It's a very visual illustration. And I don't know. I want to be fair to the guy, so we'll build this analogy. But as you and I were discussing this one on this video, we wanted to be careful on not just attacking a brother.
Right.
What we thought was this was a good video to kind of see something humorous and jump off of for a bigger, more serious question and a
Right.
bigger problem. And so we're not just making fun of this guy, but I think he makes a mistake that is pretty funny, and we can learn from and then go deeper into. So we'll start with let's give him
Yeah.
give him the best case scenario. What is that best case scenario? I think from my point of view, I mean it is visual, right?
I
Like
mean, yes, very. Very visual. I'm seeing a lot of things.
well, it's just vivid, right? Because he's
Yeah.
climbing the ladder with his own works. He's
Right.
doing it. I guess another point is like it's kids,
And he's
right?
preaching without notes, man. Like, good for you. Way to embody the sermon.
Yeah, you can tell he practiced too because he was like really sweating from the pits.
Yeah.
Which is
Oh, like, this is just like this is my, like, this is the last set, and this is like my burnout.
yeah, he
You
wanted
know, like,
to make
I was
sure that
working
he
out
could
before
do it.
youth.
Yeah.
Well, because it's youth group. If you can't do it, or like you like fall, like, I mean, youth group kids do not let you, they don't let anything go. They
Yeah,
will
you
hold
could
that over your
never
head forever.
lose to your youth group kids.
No, you can't.
That's
You can't. Yeah.
that's just textbook youth pastoring, right?
It's so true. But
Um,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
kudos to the guy for being able to do this. Like, your body's a temple.
Oh
You should be in
yeah.
good shape. Like, I can't do that. I'm telling you right now, I can't do that.
He is really athletic, and the illustration itself I think works really well for showing the
Like climbing the metaphorical ladder.
yeah, climbing the ladder, but where it stops, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where the illustration really shows, is
hmm
because he's climbing it on his own. He's climbing on his own, but then he can't get to the top. He sort of has this ceiling that he can't break through,
hmm
and so he keeps hitting the top of the cage, and it shows, hey, yeah, I can't reach heaven.
Yeah, I can't go any further.
But that's really where I think this illustration has its biggest weakness too.
Yeah, all analogies break down somewhere, right? But like
Yeah.
this one, yeah, like,
Well, it broke
where's
down
it break down?
visually too.
Yes,
'Cause he's
exactly.
saying, I can't reach heaven. I can't get above this. And then he I think he knew that the illustration didn't work because he climbs down and
Well, he does have to
uses
get back down somehow
Yeah,
as well.
well, somehow, yeah.
Without falling.
Yeah. So he says Jesus came down, and that's how he does the rungs. And then he just walks out to the audience to essentially have this intimate moment and say, Jesus breaks that ceiling. But I don't think the imagery of climbing up and reaching that ceiling like doesn't hit as hard as when he says Jesus breaks that ceiling. It almost seems like his illustration fails because
like,
we
shatter
never
it.
see him go above.
I know.
Right?
And like, well, yeah. And I think that's like, and that's really what we're trying to get at, where it's like it's not bad theology, but like is this, was it just not like was there another way maybe that you could have communicated the same exact principle?
Yeah.
And I like even a normal ladder.
Yeah. And
And you climb, you're like, if I get to the top and I try to, I can't do anymore, I'm gonna fall off. I can't do it on my own. I need someone that's gonna get me to the top and keep me at the top. Like all these things.
or
And
even
it's
just saying that
yeah,
the insufficiency, you climb up this like what? Let's just call it like a 10-foot ladder, which is really tall. You climb
yeah,
the top and you reach and like I can't reach heaven no matter
yeah.
how
Like
high I go.
no matter how I can get the biggest ladder in the world,
Yeah,
like the Tower of Babel, like bam. I
right.
mean, there you
Like
go. Like
I
we're
can't
doing it, right?
reach.
Like
And then you
yeah,
can just say, Jesus, he comes down in the form of
he
man,
made a
and
way.
because of
Yeah.
him, I can reach heaven. I'm in, yeah.
Um,
So I
yeah. Well,
really feel
even
like
yeah,
I really
yeah.
feel like as visual as it is, it actually fails.
Yeah,
Um,
like and well, and like to poke fun at me, if you will. Like let's poke fun at the Calvinist. I'd be like, yeah, let's try to climb the ladder to heaven, and I'd just be laying there on the mat. um,
like, well, he'll
like,
pick me up.
well, well because like, and we would joke around, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, like let's. I don't really do all those good things, but like all the time. Like I
Yeah.
didn't say that.
Like I
No,
didn't,
but
I
like
just
like
didn't do it.
I just don't do
I
it.
just stayed at the bottom rung.
Started from the bottom, and now I'm here because of the Lord. No, but it's like I'm just thinking, like even like my with a more reformed Calvinist theology, it's like I can't even climb the ladder to get as high as you did.
Yeah.
Like, and even if I did do those things, um, my good deeds don't earn me anything in life that uh, works could get me in. They prove you're saved, but they don't get you saved.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, like it's just interesting. Like well, you would be like, Dave, we all know why you can't do this illustration. But I'm like, we all know why you wouldn't do this.
Well, I
Um,
don't know if I'm at that explosive either. So I think we both
yeah,
fail this
not
illustration.
explosive. Yeah, I'm like kudos to him for trying to be creative.
Yeah.
It's youth group. It is
Hmm.
hard to get kids to like be engaged
Yeah.
without feeling like you're just being pithy and like we had a game and for what?
Right.
Um, like and it definitely got them engaged. Like you see, everyone's looking at him, like they're
Hmm.
listening to what he's saying. Um, and that's really good because it's hard. Like I'm not trying to be like, oh, you're doing this. Like having been a youth pastor, it's hard
Yeah.
to get 20 minutes out of youth group kids. Um, so good for him for that, and really, really good theology.
Yeah.
It just, um, is there a line between like we feel like we need to do Christianity a favor, and like and
Hmm.
we're compensating or we're going harder in the paint than we need to.
Mm. Yeah.
Uh, when it's like, hey man, you just you had the easy layup, and you're trying to do like the backwards half court shot for $50,000. When like you could like if the whole Bible talks about Jesus, you just do that layup like whoop.
Yeah.
Um like we can't climb this ladder without the Lord's help, and then even when we get to the top it's still not enough. We need him.
Yeah. There's so many illustrations that could have been used and I think I'll give it to the guy. It's like I said, it's such a great visual, which is why I think I would have liked to have seen it work.
I'd be like, dude, he just
Yeah.
climbed the salmon ladder
Like I don't
and then
know.
told me
Yeah,
the gospel.
if somehow
Like
he ended up
like
on top of the bars, right? And
yeah,
standing and say like I'm standing on Christ who gets me up here,
right.
right? So I don't know if there's like a scissor lift or something. It's like I don't have to work. It just gets me up and it just like raises him up,
Well, like
you
he
know?
climbed, right? It's like and like wouldn't that be so cool? It's like Christ, like I don't even have to like climb. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I get to be the not Jim Bro Dave,
Yeah.
and I get to be on the mat, um,
Exactly. And he
or
lifts
standing
people
on the
up.
mat, and
Like that would have been cool.
he just like whoop, yay, you're up here with me.
I think
um,
I think the funny thing about it too is one of the reasons why I really liked this video. I mean, this could have been a toss up for with a different video that I saw.
mhm, yeah.
It's there was a video of a preacher and he was talking about, I don't know, like cornbread or something, but he had
Oh yeah.
all the elements
That was great.
on his pulpit, and it wasn't a
Yep.
big pulpit either, but he had a
Nope.
gallon of milk. He had like
A
I
box
forgot
of
what he had.
Bisquick,
Yeah,
and
and
then like
something
some
else.
butter.
And he was talking about like, oh, these are the ingredients you use to make. I forgot what it was, but he was actually saying there's a dichotomy. He's like, oh, you can't make something with just these elements. You need this.
Yeah.
There was this one extra ingredient. He's like, that's what makes it this. Without it, this. And
Yeah.
it was about a 3-minute video, and he was going hard at it. And I was just thinking, man, this is his like main point, right? Because he's really
Yeah.
going hard at it. But I was just thinking, how much investment he has in that one illustration, because as he continues on his
Yeah.
sermon after, the milk, the mix, all of the stuff is still sitting on his pulpit, and he's already
Mhm.
done with the illustration.
Yeah. And
And this guy, he's
yeah.
preaching his sermon to the youth, and the salmon rack is sitting there the entire time, and he's given his illustration, and in the end, all that served was like 2 minutes, which
I know.
might be a very powerful 2 minutes. I'll give it
Well,
that. But it
mm.
seems like such a big investment.
Well, we've made jokes about like the people have made that like people, like not even just Christians making fun of pastors, but like people have like made jokes of where how like it can become a caricature where it's like, when like the pastor's trying to find a passage to fit the song that he wants to do,
Yeah.
or it's like, oh, I'm trying to find the topic that way I can do the joke that I want to do during my introduction. And it's like yeah, I pray that I won't write sermons so I can use a particular joke, or sermons so I can tell a particular story, or hey, like if I didn't have a salmon ladder, would I lose the thrust?
Yeah.
And really not even just like energy. Is my message, does it have authority? Does it have any weight or bearing if I don't have this illustration? Like I'm sure, like think about these youth group kids. Like in their minds, is it like I got to take this seriously now because he climbed a salmon ladder for it?
Yeah.
Or is it like, hey, like I want you to like are you like? It's hard to be able to, really dissect and evaluate what ends up getting, what people place more emphasis on. Like my hope is that those youth group kids like heard more of the message. Like they left going, wow, it's amazing that Christ came down and did what I couldn't do, as opposed to like, man, do you see Pastor Randy do the salmon ladder? That's insane.
Right.
Like, what do you want them leaving with?
Yeah.
Like
Is
it's one thing if
is it the image of you doing the ladder, or is it the image of Christ? Right.
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 Like exactly, because you're trying to like, and like my hope is that every time someone might think back to like this was last Wednesday, every time they think to Wednesday, they're going to think not like how you did the salmon ladder, but they think of like, oh, like Jesus did like a similar thing for me.
Right.
And I can't really evaluate that. Like if that's what's happening, then good job, youth pastor guy. Way to know your youth group. And I'm glad the illustration worked. But because I also know youth group kids, and I've had some where, it's like you've had it happen. Like that was the last thing I needed you to remember from last week's sermon.
Yeah.
you know,
And it's
and
so
it's
funny
like,
that happens
so-
all the time too.
correct. It does. Like, I don't care that we did like I dare, like, I dare you to eat this random smoothie concoction, but you forget
Yeah.
that it's like, yeah,
Or it's like, you remember when your phone went off during your preaching? Like,
yeah,
yeah, I
of course
do.
I
I
do.
I wish you would remember the preaching, not the
That's why cell
phone.
phones are bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like, and I'm sure this pastor he knows the gospel.
Mhm.
He communicated excellent theology. Like, he is not wrong.
Yeah.
And what he is saying is by far biblical.
Mhm.
Um, and so like I have no problem with what he said. Like, they
Yeah.
heard the gospel that night. And they have every reason to repent and try to reorient their lives to live for their Savior.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
like
just the
I just know
question of
my own
like,
brain. Yeah, my own
yeah,
brain's like, all I'm thinking about is your object lesson
yeah,
and not the object of the lesson, if that makes
right.
sense. I'm looking at
It's
your object lesson, but
it
not the object.
seems like the illustration was overshadowing the message. And that's kind of like
There
that's
you go.
kind of the theme for this episode
That
is
is.
about production. But now before we go on, I want to push back on ourselves a little bit, right? Because
Good.
I mean,
Good. We're not immune.
we've already
Tried.
we've already explained ourselves, right?
Mhm.
In our caution against what he did. But here's where I think you and I can both affirm that some workings like illustrations like this are good. The most famous illustration that I see a lot of pastors mimic is I don't know if he originated with it, but I remember he's certainly the most popular one to do it. Is Francis Chan's rope analogy,
Oh,
where he has the
yeah.
very long rope, right? And he talks
Dude,
about
I've even referred to it in my sermons. Like, I
yeah,
didn't bring up the rope, but I referred to it. Like,
it's so
yeah.
big, and I think I've seen like two other pastors do it, and I think it's a little bit cheesy, but it really does show. Like it's
Yeah, our
so
concept of
visual,
eternity and
and so
time. Yeah.
I think it's great. Um, so I mean, there's a difference, right? Where
Yeah.
we
Is
do
it
see
okay when
something like
Francis
that.
Chan does it?
Only because he has the name.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anything
God.
he does is okay. It's anytime someone else wants to do it.
Hmm.
No,
No.
yeah, but
But it really
um,
is like good.
yeah, there's kind of a fine line. So like we're not really knocking illustrations like that per se
No.
that are very visual. It's just you really have to ask yourself whether the illustration is going to overshadow the message, right?
Mhm.
And what you want is your illustration and preaching to kind of prop up your message. You want it to really emphasize your point, not take away from it. And as we were watching that, I just felt like the illustration was not communicated properly because of the visual. He didn't actually supersede the top rung, which
Yeah.
it kind of failed. So I felt like the entire illustration broke down. And then it made me even kind of question, like, well, I know that's probably his salmon ladder, right? No one really has one at home.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, where does he put that? Yeah.
yeah, that's the bigger question here. You know?
Yeah.
But it
No.
just seemed like he knew he could do it. He's into fitness, so it was more about his own display. And maybe he thought, I can do this. This would be a good illustration. But it just seemed like it was forced, and it just didn't fit.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know
Yeah.
if you have those same thoughts.
Well, like, yeah, and I already kind of brought it up. Like, I'm not trying to diss the illustration, but also like when it comes to my health, my time, budgets, just facilities wise, if I having triplets, if I can communicate the same thing a simpler way, I'm gonna keep it like the KISS
Yeah.
method, keep it simple, stupid. um,
Keep it simple, saints.
Yeah, saints, stupid saints. I'm just kidding. No, that's me. I'm dumb me. Okay. Anyway, like keep it simple if I can help it. Plus, it's a lot going on. It can be hard to follow depending
Mhm.
on who's listening. And because it's like it isn't just like, okay, let's find the easiest thing to do all of the time, but
Yeah.
all analogies break down somewhere. Like that's the whole, like you're just trying to illustrate something, not to here. This is the really, try not to ramble. What I'm really trying to hit on is not even just trying to keep it simple, but Mike, as a pastor, as preachers, um, we can illustrate things. But one of the biggest things, like we don't just throw in illustrations to throw in illustrations.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually, like this is the goal. Usually, we provide an illustration for a concept that might be a little bit more abstract or something our people might not readily know.
Mhm.
And so it's a concept that we want to illustrate. That way we can help it become more concrete in
Yeah.
their minds. And so that might be a theological principle, might be a theological term. It might be, a fun story that then leads into your application. Like if you're trying to transition from your explanation to your application, and then where you can kind of be like, well, just like in this passage, and then just like in this story, you too should, blank.
Yeah.
But and so what I'm really getting at is when I hit on the first part was like, not even like, is this like, what is the point you're trying to make? But like, is this illustration even necessary? Is there a simpler way you could have communicated it? Is this a theological principle that you needed to illustrate?
Hmm.
Like, does your youth group not know? And maybe they don't like that, and that's why I'm not trying to judge. Like maybe they don't know. Maybe they are trying to live a works righteousness,
Yeah.
works based kind of life where they think they can get to heaven with all those things, and that's fine. Um, well, it's fine that he's illustrating that, not fine that they think that. Um,
Yeah. Good clarification.
yeah, yeah.
We almost stoned you.
Thank you. That would have been a good illustration. um, Object lesson. No, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, is this even like, don't just throw in illustrations to throw in illustrations.
Right.
You want to make sure it's like, okay, this is something that they need a story or whatever to better understand. And so
Well,
there's
I
a
mean,
lot to think
this is
about.
kind of a good segue to where we wanted to jump off from, and that's how much production in a church is too much production. And I know,
Great
man, we
question.
we tread
Oh,
unsafe
like, yeah,
waters, right?
yeah.
We border on the verge of stepping on people's toes. Granted, this is our opinion, but this is our educated opinion.
Mm. Yeah,
So it's like
education.
how much production should we have in a church? Like I've seen churches, they have the fog lights, they got the lasers, they got the dimmed down colored lights, the
Like
keyboard
Advent.
synthesizers.
um,
I know there's even a church that I think they have a full on play production with
yeah,
famous
or it's like
actors
Advent.
that they will actually raise up a
Yeah,
Jesus on a cross, like crucified.
yeah.
It's
I think like even like Advent, they had like a guy like the little drummer boy like zip lining in with like a snare drum.
yeah,
Like I
it's
forget,
just
like I don't know, no, I don't know the church. I've just seen it viral, and it's just like
yeah.
they got people zip lining
Well,
in their church. Like,
I mean, and they have that, and then there's pastors where you can see them like kind of float along, or it's a worship, and they're on strings, and it's high production. But on the flip side, you have those churches, and it's like, is that an acoustic guitar? Like that is
yeah, how
satanic.
dare
We
you?
only do organs,
We're a
and
cappella
and yeah,
and
and
only low
it's
voices, Gregorian chant. Okay, a certain
and
meter.
and we do have churches like that. So like
Yeah,
where do we draw the line? Because I do remember electric guitars being extremely controversial. It's like,
very.
should you have it? That's rock and roll. That's
That's the
culture.
devil's
Yeah.
music.
So like how much in our church should we allow production to take up?
Right. And I'm gonna try not to get into the weeds like where to like you end up talking about like what we now think of worship as well.
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah. That
but
could be
like
a
it,
oh man.
that's
We're
a
always
slippery,
coming
yeah.
across like
It's
things that
yeah,
can be episodes in and of themselves.
yeah. That's just what we do.
Yeah. That's why we need this
Always something to talk
podcast.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think there is a line. I think we can draw. I think there are safeguards. Even in, Mike, you're in LA, but I
Mhm.
live in, on the East Coast, and I live near, I'm about an hour away from the Eastern Shore. But like, we have so many people with our Chesapeake Bay because we've got the best crabs and everything. We love being on the water, and we see buoys all the time. See, I'm about to use an illustration.
Oh
We
man.
have buoys, um, and those buoys, like, they indicate to you when you're driving a boat where you should go, where you shouldn't go. It lets you know the depth. That way you can be a safe driver and not um,
Yeah.
essentially shipwreck your boat or go, um, you
It
know,
gives
lam-
you the safeguards
correct.
to
And
look out
now
for.
if you go past those buoys, it's like you're in the water, so it's like, come on, go back over there. Like
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world, but if you keep going to one way or the other, it's going to be bad for you. And so it keeps you in line. And thankfully, we have lots of buoys in Scripture, um, that, it might not outright say, this is, this isn't, or this is too much production,
Hmm.
um, like explicitly. But we know, like, hey, we know these are the perimeters of what we're supposed to be doing. Um, and then we start drifting. And so I think it could become too much of a production, especially when you just lose sight of, like, why are we here? Music's great, but like, when's music too loud? Like when you can't hear the audience, I would say. That's me
Yeah.
personally. Music's too loud when you can't hear the church singing,
Mm.
or they don't feel like they need to sing because they know they're not going to be heard.
Yeah.
Um, that's
I
like the
have
music element.
I have music I have worship sound limitations at my church because some of my congregants have hearing aids and the
Hmm.
music being too loud,
Same.
they're actually very sensitive.
Yeah, when they
Um
have to take their hearing aids out, it will hurt
yeah.
their ears. Like,
Yeah.
it's mean to have it be too loud.
So, I mean, we had it at a comfortable level. People were okay with it, but I had a couple congregants actually ask me, and I did adjust it. I lowered it because I thought, you know what, it's okay for it to be lower than I
Yeah.
think people would want it, because they'll just
Um,
have to sing with our worship pastor. That's fine.
right. And then, or let's think about songs, right? Like, that's the music's like the volume side, but like, how do we pick our songs? Like, that's why I mean, like, you can go into the weeds
Yeah,
with worship,
yeah.
but like, are all songs good for church? No.
Hmm.
But are all songs bad? No. So how do we know which songs are the ones that are supposed to be sung? Um,
They come in a
and
hymnal. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
kidding. I'm just
agreed.
kidding.
Exactly. Hymnal.
I
Yep,
had
yep.
to
Keep
poke
it,
the
keep
fun. You
burn.
know, I
Yep.
had to
I agree.
poke at it.
Um, I'd say two things. It needs to be scriptural. The song needs to be
Yeah,
scriptural. Like, and not just like you use like a verse. Like, you are proclaiming scripture.
right.
Uh, Like, I can double check your work. It's like, yep, says it there, says in that. Yep, that's John 1. Yep. Oh, okay. Yep, that's Psalm 19. Uh, that, and then also, can the congregation sing it? I've
Yeah.
learned this when I'm picking some praise songs. We've actually done it where it's like a song of reflection, where you just sit and listen to the words because it's a good song, scriptural song. Not an easy one to sing corporately. Uh,
Yeah,
and is
that's my beef
that a
with
production? Am I
a
putting
lot of
more thought?
current
Yeah.
worship. I mean, we
Hmm.
have people like Phil Wickham. Oh my gosh, he has such a beautiful voice, and we have these phenomenal upcoming artists, and they're coming out with this, but they're high tenors and altos, and I'm a baritone, you know. I
I'm
have
like, we
friends
need to
that are
like
basses.
octave down.
I
Like, yeah,
feel
we
like
like.
my vocal cords are straining and burning trying to sing worship songs with them. I'm like,
Just
I
sing
need you
to the
guys to
Lord.
bring it down a couple
Yeah,
octaves, you know?
please. Like,
But
yeah,
yeah.
no.
I think one of the major factors too, as far as a litmus is the purpose of the song to give worship to God, right? Because there's a huge difference between Chris
Mhm.
Tomlin or Phil Wickham and POD,
Well,
right?
right. And they
Like
do
like
like we
those,
want to give glory to God with what
yeah,
we're doing, but like our
but
words
yeah,
explicitly, like, yeah.
like our music is not worship music.
And they would tell you that. Yeah.
It's music that Christians can get behind.
Oh, for sure.
So
But
there's
it's
like
a
a
genre.
major difference between even Christian music that might be on the radio versus worship music that's appropriate for a Sunday.
Mm-hmm. And don't you love like even like when like we have examples of worship like in the New Testament of like instruments or like what they're saying, like we're saying hymns and psalms and spiritual songs. I
Hmm.
love to say spiritual songs, like meaning you don't have to be psalms only necessarily,
Yeah.
although I do love churches that do that. And it's not psalms and hymns only, even though I love
Yeah.
churches that do that. Or even they only do spiritual songs and then maybe they throw in a hymn. Like it's just sing hymns, sing psalms, sing spiritual songs, or any hodgepodge of the three. But they gotta be scriptural, and that's even like that's the music element.
Yeah.
Even like let's think of a production, right? Like,
Right.
is it bad to have lights at church? Like, and think about how I asked that question. Is it bad to have
Yeah.
lights at church?
No, I mean
No,
we need
I'm
lights
not.
to see.
You need exactly like
Right.
it's bad. I think the power's out if lights don't come on
Yeah.
at church. Now, spotlights at church, dimming the lights at church.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, see, like, and
And
that's like,
that's the interesting thing too, because I have
and
come out
why
of a
do we do
church where
that?
they do that, and like that feels okay, you know, when we get to prayer,
Intimate
dim
and
down the
cozy.
lights. Yeah,
Yeah.
it creates this sense of worship. But then, you know, you get to this point of like blue lights, the color lights, the show production, and it
Hmm.
starts to slide a little bit, and you're like, okay, this is good.
Yeah.
But then you start to be introduced to higher like mega churches and stuff, and they'll bring in a little bit of fog too.
Yeah.
Or
Or think about like, should you put up a backdrop behind your pulpit to hide a drum set? I'm so sorry, y'all. This is not
never.
fair. Never.
That is absolutely heretical in
Yeah,
fact.
exactly. I love poke.
No,
Thank
but
you for
that's a good point. You know, like there's always a level of production. The
exactly.
question is how much can we go into before we slip beyond, you know,
Right.
the Bethel golden glitter Holy Spirit coming down,
Sure.
you know?
Or like, yeah,
How
like, or you have the
much?
underground, or you have the underground church, like in China, and you're like, we meet in our living rooms, or
Yeah.
we kind of got to go out into the middle of nowhere of nature, where it's so rural, no one's going to really, know or pay attention. Like you're in a hut somewhere, or you're a mountainous people like in South America and you're in a cave. Like where's the production there? You're just hoping you
Yeah.
have enough sunlight to see and that, like and like that's what I meant
I
like
think
we're talking about worship now
yeah.
cuz
I
it's
think
like
just on that point too, it's kind of a good point as you were saying that it made me realize the safe option is less production.
yeah, that's
You
yeah,
could
the
if
buoys.
you were to lean towards one place, it's less production, right?
Err on the
Because
side of caution.
yeah, error on the side of caution, not on the side of I need to keep pushing towards. So at least we have that. If we're gonna fail, we're gonna fail less production.
Right. Well, we've
Um,
talked about this like and like there's a difference between being creative, relevant,
mhm,
strategic. Those are all good things. And as times change or as new like technological advances, like yeah, Martin Luther had to nail his 95 Theses to a church door
Yeah.
in Wittenberg, Germany. Now, who knows if he had Twitter
Yeah.
and YouTube, like he might have not had to nail anything, and he's just like, I'm just going to go live on my channel, and y'all about to hear it.
It's good. We
And-
would have had a
oh.
YouTube viral video titled
Yeah,
"Martin Luther destroys the Catholic
Destroys.
Church."
yeah, Babylon
Yeah.
B. Martin Luther not sure who to what Antichrist to destroy first. Like,
That's funny. Yep.
but it's just like, but you look back at that and be strategic, be creative. You might have to, you don't change the message. Oh gosh, don't change the message. But yeah, you might be like, hey, maybe we do a podcast on YouTube because we're already talking about this, but this is how people will ingest the information
Right.
best. And so like, but Christianity, like, we have so many heresies arose in the first century, so many doctrinal problems, practical problems arose in the church because people thought Christianity needed favors.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
And Christianity does not need our favors. It needs Christ.
Right.
And
And I think that's
what?
why.
And so, yeah, what's the distinction? Like, how
Yeah,
do you
I
decide,
think that's
is this
why-
a favor or necessary?
Yeah. And I think the first part of this episode with the video was a really good foundation to
Mm-hmm.
the production question. Is if once your illustration starts to overpower your message,
Yeah.
or once your message becomes shadowed by your illustration, you've gone too far. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good foundation for the production question, is once your production overshadows the message that you're trying to get across, which is the relationship with God, the message of the gospel, then you've gone too far. And so we have things like, the fog, the dimmed down lights, and all of this stuff. And I've said it to my congregation before, I'll never have someone play a guitar or keys under me while I pray.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them there's a reason why I firmly believe that, because I felt it in myself. This is why I made this a strict rule. And
Right.
no other churches I'm here. I just want to say this. I'm not knocking any churches that do this. I'm not knocking people who have keys playing under them when they do their prayers, or
Yeah,
guitar
no.
melodies or anything. I'm
That's
not
fine.
knocking you guys for it. But here's why I don't do it. And it came from something within myself that I noticed, and it really bothered me once I saw it. And it was that worship pastors are so good at bringing us to a place of worship. It's their job. And one
Right.
way you can do that is when you pray, you have these soft keys under you, or a nice melody that really
Yeah, just sustaining.
yeah, it's beautiful, and it makes the prayer feel more powerful, and you feel like the Lord is there. You feel like his presence is there. You can feel it. You're right before the altar praying now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very successful worship pastor with the tools of what he has to be able to accomplish that goal. But what really bothered me is there are times when I started to feel like I was in a dry season. And the reason why I was feeling like I was in a dry season is because when I get home and I'm praying by myself and I'm going through the muck and I'm praying in my own bedroom, I don't have those keys. I don't have the melody. It's just silent, and I
You
don't
need like
feel like the
ambient,
Lord's
like
there.
nature music.
Yeah,
playing
and it's like,
to you.
and it's almost like a drug. I'm
Oh,
like feeling the
the
withdrawal
dopamine.
effects. I don't feel the Lord's presence unless it's that. And so
Yeah.
that production level actually is overshadowing what it's trying to accomplish. I am actually feeling less in my relationship to God because it doesn't have that production. And
Yeah.
so we don't want our production value to go that far, right? We don't
No.
want people to feel, and I'm seeing this more and more, and only because I pastor a church that doesn't have a lot of production value. But I see this more and more is as people come to my church and they come to visit, they get struck by what we have and what we can't provide. We don't have the keyboardist, we don't have the lights, we don't have all of this other stuff, and we don't really compete with that, right?
Right.
I'm not
I'm
sure I
I'm not
want
trying
to
to be
grow
someone
into
I'm
that.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Right.
sure I want to grow into that. What I provide is expository Bible-based preaching,
Yep.
and we follow the Lord, and we are growing, and maybe one day we will grow into something like that. But people need that now. People
Yeah.
need the Hillsong
I know.
vibe. People
Well,
need
oh
that,
god,
and it's
oh gosh,
we
we
have
didn't
to start
worship
asking.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
How
have to
was
start
worship
asking,
today?
did we
It's
go
like,
past?
yeah.
Did that production now mean that I don't feel like I'm at a church or a good church unless it has that?
Yeah. And that's like, well, like that's how like Mark Dever when they started Nine Marks Ministries. He's like, there's a little bit more, but you need at least these 9 marks. Remember, he's like, that's why it's
Oh
called
yeah,
nine
yeah, yeah.
marks. These 9 marks to like, how do you know like it's a true church? Because a true church is going to have at least these 9 things. You know, and it talks about prayer, the sacraments, expository preaching, um, singing psalms, hymns, spiritual songs, fellowship, and so there's a couple, like a lot of marks. Um, but it's interesting, uh, like we don't want to, add a 10th mark where, yeah, how do you know we're a true church? Well, because we have reverb on our guitars and we have a great light show and we have, whatever. And I also and then okay, and let me also pick on me. Let me not make fun of me, but like let's look at my side. I come from a church where we sing, we have an organ and we sing 2 hymns and we have a praise song that we play on recording, pre-recorded, and we print the lyrics in the bulletin.
Hmm.
And so yeah, 2 hymns with an organ, and we sing a cappella.
Yeah.
Well, practically it's voices with an organ.
Right.
And a praise song, which is voices with a track. We're not more spiritual because we have less either.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm
That's a
trying.
good
I
point.
want to make sure it's like, oh, look how much holier we are
Yeah, look
because
how
we
much we
don't do
work
the
with
production.
less. We
Yeah,
yeah.
we make like less is more. Like yeah,
Right.
because I try to find the balance where like, um, where you know, songs like "Ode to Joy" or "Amazing
Mm.
Grace," like these hymns were like contemporary.
Yeah.
They took theological lyrics and put them to contemporary bar songs.
Yep.
So people would sing down at the pub, like, there's nothing for the Yankee Doodle, but it's like,
Yeah,
thank
not a
you,
lot of people
Jesus,
know
we love you.
that
Yeah.
Amazing Grace, the
Hmm.
lyrics are beautiful, they're theological, but they were set to a bar song of the time. That's a
Correct.
bar tune, and we sort of appropriated it and laid our lyrics over it.
Right. And so I think, when you say contemporary Christian music, people are going to think of a particular genre,
Yeah.
as opposed to the idea that just Christian music's always been contemporary.
Yeah.
And so, meaning whatever instruments are around at the time, whatever sound effects you might have at the time, so long as they are not distracting, that's the big thing. That's my
Hmm.
clarification. Not distracting, then by all means use it as a gift that God has given you to make sound, make joyful noises for Him. So we're not better because we only have an organ, um, and people aren't better because they have, a full choir and they have, every single instrument and,
Mm.
you know, um, because, and I actually just had a worship meeting with my worship ministry team this past Sunday where you're always trying to find that balance of not being distracting in the sense of, it wasn't awkward for us, but like for some folks, you can have an awkward conversation like, hey, maybe you need to practice more. Um, and
Right.
like, how do you fine tune that, right?
Mm.
Why do we need to practice more? Is it because like, hey, the Lord deserves our best? or it's like, no, I want us to fit this mold of how worship music's supposed to sound, and you're just not
Yeah.
cutting it yet. Because you don't want to be a distraction. You're distracting if you're bad, and you're distracting if you're too good.
Yeah.
Like if I hear you sounding like Eddie Van Halen, that's a problem.
I've
And if I
I've
hear you like you can't even play at all,
I
that's a problem
remember
too.
being at a church where someone in the background had a wonderful voice, right? But he
Just like
was
hit these notes.
he was a split second behind, and he would hold the notes in vibrato and do all these things with it.
Good for him.
Yeah, and
But like,
and he was always the last voice you heard. He wasn't in the worship. He was in the back. But he wanted to be noticed. And
man,
he did have a great voice. He did.
right.
He just wanted to make
Right.
sure everyone knew it.
Man. And like
But
what do you
yeah,
do with that, right?
like
Because
that's
you're like,
distracting.
yeah. It's like the youth group kid. They're like, I'm gonna be the last one to clap.
Hmm.
Like at like the round
Yeah.
of applause, like and then like
But yeah,
yeah,
in the end,
balance.
that's what it's about. It's about balance. When it comes to production, there's no strict formula. There's no fine line. It's one of those things where it's like when you see it, you know it. You know that the
Yep.
church has gone too far. It's gone too high in production, and one of the ways you can it's going to take a lot of thinking, because you have
Mhm.
to be really and honestly asking yourself, is this overshadowing the message and the goal?
Right.
Is this going too far? Is this gonna in some way pull back from their relationship with the Lord? And that's why I brought up my example of I don't let people play while I pray.
Mhm. Right.
That was a side effect that I don't think that people really thought about, and to this day I don't think they've really thought about that and how that's affected them. But that's something that I've implemented, and I
Mhm.
think that's a unfortunate consequence to our production. And so I think we need to always be thinking about that. I think we
Yeah.
always need to be assessing that, and we can continue to take steps forward in production, because let's be honest, with some of that production, it really does help. Like I said, the
Mhm.
keys, the synthesizing, the guitar, it really does work. That's why
Yeah.
churches do it. It really does bring us to a point of worship. And
Well,
and
I mean, I
and we
had a yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I mean like 2 Sundays ago, I had out of nowhere the cable for my microphone, bad cable, which
Hmm.
means my microphone would cut in and out,
Oh.
which no, we don't need to get a new cable. Now we're trying to be a production. Like
Yeah.
I'm being sarcastic. Like no
Yeah,
one's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
say that. It's like no, it's more worship's better by getting a new cable so
Hmm.
we can actually hear Pastor Dave talk when he's preaching and we're not distracted by it coming in and out. Um, it's like, yeah, like I love how well, like that was a real life illustration. That was a real life illustration,
Yeah.
an object lesson of, yeah, don't make Christianity or church something that it isn't. Like,
Right.
uh, look at it in the Bible, like Paul, like, you know what I mean? Like, and you don't have to like only do it in the Bible where it's like, oh, well,
And I
they
guess,
met in houses and like, but like
yeah.
the Bible is the safeguard in the manner and the attitude and who is the object of the lesson.
Right.
Like when in your object lesson, who's the object? Because I can imagine Isaiah being called up, um, um, gosh, and just like if you see a bunch of seraphim and like
Oh, that's a
this is
production right there.
that's quite a show. Holy, holy, holy.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
one, it's appropriate. Yeah,
holy, holy,
'cause
holy. That's repetitive. That's 3 times. That's a lot of bridges.
well,
That's
that's
repetitive.
contemporary Christian music. We just keep doing the
Yes.
bridge, you know. And
Holy, holy, holy.
we just keep doing the chorus. Sorry.
Right. Or like I'm preaching Nehemiah, or does worship need to be, hey, we're fasting, we're praying, we're repenting, I'm putting on
Yeah.
sackcloth and I'm putting dirt on my head.
I think we need to do I honestly do think we need to do an episode just on worship. Because
Sounds good.
that's a
Twist my
huge
arm.
topic.
It is very
I
big.
mean, that being said, we're gonna have to wrap it up here.
Yeah.
But if you could choose, and this is sort of instead of a recommended resource, I think this would be a fun question. If you could
Mhm.
choose to learn an instrument that you don't already know, because I already know you know the guitar,
The git fiddle.
the little
Yeah.
git fiddle.
Drums and the git fiddle.
If you could learn any instrument, what would it be? And I'm gonna say across all time, right? Like you can use a lute
Mm,
or a lyre.
that's fun. I hope this doesn't sound arrogant. I'm not trying to be cheeky. Um, I'd want a voice. I want to be able to sing.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
You can teach me how to play guitar. You can teach me how to play mandolin. I can learn how to play a flute. I can learn how to I mean, I might not be great, but like I I just don't know how to play those other instruments because I haven't sat down and tried.
yeah.
Like I have some music ability, which means with enough practice, I might be okay at something maybe. I don't know. Bagpipe even. But it's but and you might need vocal lessons, but vocal chords,
Hmm,
of a singing voice is something
yeah,
you're born with. God gives it to you.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm
Good
not
one.
that's like
No,
you
that's
said
a really good
instrument,
one. That one threw me off.
because my dad used to joke around too. He's like, guitarists, they're a dime a dozen. Like if I could sing, man, I can write a song. like
Oh yeah,
I just can't sing.
yeah.
Uh,
When you write music, you gotta write it for someone else now.
and I still might not even be that good either. but
Yeah,
but if I could sing,
yeah.
I sing, but I don't.
That's a
Mm-mm.
yeah.
Not by myself, and I can't command a room.
That's a
Anyway,
good one.
yeah, beat that one.
Well, I
You want
mean,
to learn
yeah, I know. I feel
spoons?
so deflated now.
You
I
want to
had
learn the milk
mine.
jug in your bluegrass band?
No, this is gonna sound kind of. I don't know. Maybe it might sound lame, but
Steel
there's
drum.
some an instrument that's always fascinated me is the harp.
Oh, well, it's just
It's
like a
just
piano.
I know, but it's just
It's
I
not,
don't know.
but
It seems so like mystical,
a
you know, and like
didgeridoo.
it always it always sounds like really like melodic. It sounds like something you could fall asleep to.
Yeah, like
I
a
don't know.
three-headed dog.
And it just
Mm.
it has the image of like elegance, and so I don't know. And then I think, you know, maybe I think the lyre is like a form or a pre-form of the harp, or like a
Uh,
simplified form of it.
Lyre's like
Or is it
how
more
do I
like a
explain it?
guitar?
A lyre, I think, is like an in-between of a mandolin and a guitar.
Oh, okay.
Where
I always
imagine
pictured
this
it as like one of those small little harp things, you know, it's like the horseshoe with like five strings.
no,
It's kind
that's called a harp. I'm just kidding. No, just you jerk,
Probably.
Dave, you jerk. No, okay. I'm glad that you said harp though, because it's
Yeah.
if you ever
You get the
gone to
voice,
a
I get the
dinner,
harp, bro.
if I've gone to a dinner before where you see it on stage, like you just see the harp. You
Yeah.
don't even know who's gonna play it yet. You just see the harp. You just see the Guinness logo, and you're like, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're like, it's gonna be a good time. No, like you just feel instantly like proper, like
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
a fine dining experience.
Establishment.
Yes. Yeah,
And it's so
uh,
funny because harps
just
can
because
be
it's
like
there.
pianos. You know, it's like
Correct. You're
it might
plucking
not even be used. It's sort of just like a piece in a room. You know,
it's
it's like
furniture or
yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
like
beautiful. Learn a harp, dude.
it'd be cool. I
Like
don't know if I'd ever have time to do it, but I just think it'd be cool.
like I agree. Like it's music, right? It's like we got to wrap this up.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. We're getting
I'm
lost in the
so
question now.
guys, we're real people. Don't forget.
Anyways,
It's not a production.
it's not a production, although we would like a harp and a voice.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. We're really trying to break ground on ground level theology. What a pun there.
Yeah.
We're really trying to
Groundbreaking.
yeah, we're really trying to break ground here with exploring more in depthly these topics that I think we don't think enough about. How
Mhm.
much production is too much production, but even more so for the person that you might be, the person that comes to church and listens to the sermons, how much of a production do you require? How
Mhm.
much do you want? If you were to go to a church now, do you need keyboards? Do you need synthesizers? Do you need the lights? Do you need even
Mhm.
an acoustic guitar? What if you went to a church that was solid Bible and had
Yep.
no music at all? All they
Yep.
had was a YouTube that they played over some speakers. Would that be
Mm.
would that be too little for you? It's a question that I think we all need to ask
Mm.
ourselves. And so as we contemplate how much production do we have in our lives? How much can we move into and upgrade to? And how much of it is actually pulling us away from the Lord? I, I really hope that you
Mhm.
enjoyed our conversation and as we tried to explore that. And stay tuned for more. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share with all your friends and family and whoever you want. And don't forget to subscribe because that's the only way we're going to grow. We're going to grow with you and we're going to grow with the Lord. And
Yep.
so, uh, much love. And we'll see you guys in the next one.